Hi, my name is Deb Johnston, and welcome to Women Reinventing Midlife TV, where we aim to inspire you, the woman over 50, to thrive in a meaningful life that you deeply desire and deserve. Here you're going to find real life stories from women over 50 to inspire you to reinvent any aspect of your life, together with tips and content around mindset, wellness, and style to guide you to build confidence and vitality in your 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond. And today, we have an incredibly inspirational story to bring you because I'm joined by Lisa Michelle Zega. Lisa is a grief and life coach for people experiencing loss that mere religion can't hold. She guides them to process grief through love and move from the emptiness of rigid certainty to the vibrancy of a life flourishing in hope and mystery. She helps women to metabolize grief, to assimilate its nutrients, learning, and wisdom, and release the waste so that they can begin again with joy, confidence, hope, and love for the sake of the world. Now, Lisa has suffered through some great losses of her own, which led her into the work that she's doing now. And I believe personally that grief is a topic that we need to discuss more. And we're going to do that today. And she's also going to share her personal stories with us. Lisa, welcome. I'm so thankful that you're here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was fun to hear the introduction, just wash over me, even though these are my words. It's like, ah, wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's how it happened. That's what it's about. Yeah, exactly. It is. And I love that you're doing this work. I really love that you're doing it. Having been through a number of losses myself and experienced grief in many different forms, I believe it is a topic that really needs to be talked more about because it's not talked about enough. And so many people don't know what to say to someone that's grieving either. So it's and people are not sure of how they're meant to be when they're grieving as well. It can come as a big shock. Yeah. So I'm really, really, really happy that you're doing this work and that you're on the show today. I would love you to share with our audience a story of your own losses because, you know, we can experience loss around so many different things. We automatically think it's the death of a loved one, but it's not always that, is it?
No, in fact, often some of our deepest grief is not over a loss at all. Now it is a loss, but it's not it's something we needed that we didn't get. And so we're experiencing a loss, but oftentimes it goes unseen, unhealed because it's just not attended, right? So and that's my own story. Like my most pervasive loss was I never met my biological father.
Wow.
Now that's not even something I knew I never knew him. What do you mean? And yet his absence spoke volumes. And then, subsequent, I had different dads in my life, and each one of them went on with their life after the divorce. And so, a series of losses. And I moved a lot as a child. And as a child, we go along with what the big people are doing. And my little personality and way of being, I was highly adaptive. So I really just learned you just go on and you go on and you go on. And then fast forward. And I mean, I guess it doesn't normally happen like this for me, Deb, but tonight it's just sort of landing. Like my peepaw died by suicide when I was 13. My sister died of an asthma attack when I was 21. My Mima died. I don't know how old I was, but I know how old I wasn't, and like the gap of,
Yeah.
because she died before I ever had children, and I was married when she died, and I remember thinking she's never going to meet my kids, you know?
Mm.
And then fast forward, like now I'm thinking more in sweeping losses. I left a marriage after 23 years of marriage, and that represented far more than the loss of the marriage.
Mm.
It was an identity, how I came to see myself. Like, I'm wife, I am mother, I am Christian, I am Christian leader, and now I am none of these things. And I mean, I was still a mom, but in the divorce, my boys, they didn't know how to process. And for a season, they stopped talking to me. And I really felt like I left my mom card, like when I left, and then I didn't know how to relate to myself. And my boys, had I known the way that was going to occur, like I don't think I would have believed it.
Yeah.
And had I known, I don't know if I would have left. I don't know if I would have had the courage. I don't know. And then later, my I got engaged, and 5 months before our wedding day, he died in a motorcycle accident the day after Easter. And I had just moved out of my apartment and was staying with a girlfriend in transition in this holding pattern because I was going to be leaving that city.
Oh, wow.
And I moved in on a Friday and he died on a Monday.
Oh my goodness.
So, and she was looking like, it was a loss for her too, because part of me coming was meant to be this tremendous support for her. She was a single mom, and now she's got single mom, 2 kids, and this woman in shock who's so anyway, that is a snapshot. I mean, it doesn't represent a lifetime of losses, but it definitely, there was some cherry picking of the big ones.
Yeah, wow. And so, I noticed with your marriage ending after 23 years, there was a grief around a loss of, almost a loss of a life, a loss of identity even.
Absolutely. I didn't know how, and everything was new.
Mm.
I didn't know how to relate to myself. There was so much shame for me to process. I had, we've all got our survival strategies in life, and one of mine is around success. But part of the way I was relating to success there, it wasn't like vocational success. It was like I was finding identity in who I am as this person's wife,
Mm.
as my kids, who I am as it sounds so funny, but my little ego, like a pillar in the community, God's church, like all this. And I was like, I failed at everything, the great endeavors of my heart.
Mm. Mm.
And I felt so lost.
Mm.
And yeah.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
And my vocation, I was a life coach. And
Wow.
I thought, so here I am supporting people in going after their dreams and vision and making a stand for who they want to be in the world. And I'm like, well, my big stand was who I was as a wife and a
Wow.
mom. So I can't stand for you. I failed for me. And so then I was really like,
Isn't that amazing? And I think, you know, there is a lot of identity around when we're a coach, there's a lot of identity around that. And I certainly found that for me, and it was when my father passed away 3 years ago that all unraveled. So it was kind of like, well, who am I? Who am I without that label and that label and that label?
Yes.
And there was a strong identification with what I did for a vocation, strong identification with it. And it took having my heart cracked open for me to actually see who I really am.
Yeah. Someone was just telling me the story of a baby chick, right? And how a baby chick is born. But what she said really struck me, like the idea that that chick, as it's coming out of the shell, it's suffocating
Mm. Mm.
as it grows too big for a shell that can't contain it. And I mean, there's a genuine death in this new life that we, when you were talking to women and the idea of revisioning a life and creating something new, and it's all there and it's all available for all of us. And what some of the marketing doesn't say is, hey, and there's a death, by the way.
Yeah, that's right.
Like multiple deaths, as we're like our essence. These phrases are just coming to me. I don't even think I've ever said this before, but it's like our essence is shelled by the ego. And like our essence is like that baby chick. And the ego can't hold it.
Yeah.
And there is somewhat of a death as we come into this new life.
Yes.
And I have experienced that multiple times. Now I'm not fighting it as much because there's a sense of I am being supported, I'm being loved into a new life. But lest I sound too like spiritual, just so you know, I mean, I resisted it pretty like with a death grip up until about a year and a half ago.
I think most of us do. Most of us do, don't they? We do, most of us. I think, yeah, we do. And I think, in times of grief, it's when we're able to peek through the ego. I think
I agree.
Yeah, it all kind of just falls down around us. It's like the whole facade just falls down around us because we no, I can't explain the reason why. I don't think it's kind of it's all kind of, what's the point? We reach that stage and we go, what is the point in all this?
Well, I don't think that we even recognize that we've got facades that we're running, I don't think we're present to it. And grief just kind of breaks it all open.
Yeah.
Because when you introduced me, you said that it helps people process grief that mere religion can't hold.
Yes.
Well, that could be substituted. Our facades can't hold, our performance can't hold, our check boxes can't hold. All of our strategies that I've got this together, I can do life, whatever it is that we're telling ourselves. And we're not actively, but this is just how we're doing life. And then it all sort of crumbles. And there does seem to be a like, who am I? What is this? What? And our heartbreak really does feel painful, like depending on what it is. But I mean, we physically feel, we say these phrases like I'm broken, which I don't tend to enjoy, but there's something that's being communicated there. We feel something break.
Yeah.
It's not, and science now tells us, no, yes, it is a physical pain. We physically, so
It's pretty incredible, isn't it? And I know that I've said that myself. Each time I've been in grief, I've actually been able to feel the physical pain. It's easy to try and just keep going and brush over it, and because it's not an easy thing to deal with. Pain is not an easy thing to deal with. It's not an easy thing to express, and it's easy to just soldier on, as we call it in England. Soldier on, keep a brave face on it. What actually happens though if we do that, like if we don't actually express what we're feeling?
Well, really, people can check in with, like, we all have the sense of what happens. Because when we're present to it and just like checking in with our body, I mean, I've had people describe it to me as it feels, if I ask, what does this feel like inside you? Well, it feels heavy. It feels slimy. It feels like dark. I'm trying to think of some of there are like, and then people having the awareness, wait a minute, this is living inside me. This energy that I can vividly describe to you. And it's no one's fault. Like, I don't know all the ways that we as a culture have learned to not be with one another in grief. But I do think it's learned, it's conditioned. And I say that because there are places. Like, I remember, I wish I could remember the name, but there was a tribe in Africa and they sent what they were calling missionaries to the United States because we don't know how to grieve. And there's a tradition that, like, Francis Weller and other people that have been so impactful in my life in becoming an apprentice to grief, they were actually taught by people that were sent from Africa to help us in the West.
Because they know how to express emotion.
Yeah, just to be with it. And I think I have such a passion for this because as I have become an apprentice of grief, I have recognized all the places in me. And I know there are going to be more that are discovered, but I cannot even tell you how much love that I didn't know I had been deprived has now been given to me. And then how much more love. Like, someone said to me today, they were talking about being in therapy and said, I've been to 3 therapists and they don't know how to be with me. And this is nothing about therapists. I know there's marvelous therapists.
Yeah.
But the idea, what he said was profound, though. He said they are trying to package my experience because it's too uncomfortable for them and because they don't know how to hold their own pain. They don't know how to hold mine. So they're trying to make it manageable. If you've ever heard yourself say, don't feel that way, Deb, you're amazing. You were a good mom. You did the best. That's all we're doing is trying to shrink down another person's suffering.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how to be with the bigness of it. So I want to bring it down and make you okay so that I can be okay.
Yeah.
But we all feel it. If you're on the receiving end when you're in pain of those very words, the comfort that is intended is not there. Because what happens is we get dismissed, and there's this subtle lie that says you only get to be loved when it's packaged nice and pretty.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, no, 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 no. Love's got to get into all the crevices. And sometimes, like, what we're being called to, Deb, and what you were saying is, like, pain is hard to hold. And we are being called to hold pain and allow it to heat up, that it could alchemize and change us. And it becomes really present to us that our vessel's sometimes not big enough, and we need other containers around us so that I
Mm,
can spill over, be out of control, still be safe, still be loved, and go, everything's okay.
yeah, yeah.
We get to break. We get to, because we don't actually break. Like I, what is that mystery? Like we feel like we've broken, and yet we come away from those experiences and it's like, wait, I'm more whole.
It's
I'm more
true.
integrated.
It is true. It is so true. It's kind of like the phoenix that rises, isn't it? It's yeah, that is so incredibly true, that it takes us to be broken apart to come back together more whole. And I think it's so important that, like you said, we actually sit with the pain and just allow it to be.
Yeah,
I love what you were saying about someone's well-meaningly saying don't feel that way because,
absolutely.
yeah, because of this and this. Um, when it's an actual real feeling for the person that's expressing it, and it's important to sit with it, to be able to see through it themselves. It's because it kind of shuts down the conversation.
Yeah. The
Mm,
same way when we hand someone a tissue. Well,
mm,
we're doing that to be of service, but the silent message is dry those up. They're not welcome here.
mm.
No, we don't mean that.
Yeah.
There are so many messages that we've imbibed, like we couldn't help it, just like a fish is swimming in water. When we live and have grown in a culture that says your pain is too much.
Mm,
I
mm,
mean, Deb, one of my biggest heartbreaks, I have uh, three boys that I gave birth to, five kids that I get to be a mother of some sort to. My middle child is more on the sensitive side. He feels deeply. He always has, like he's just, and I didn't have the capacity for him.
mm,
I didn't know, but I didn't know that. And I had at the time, I was in the church, and so I was very, very aware of Bible and scripture. And so what I did was I took this spiritual truth and I used it for my own comfort and tried to package him in Bible verses. And when someone does that to you, you know intuitively that it's wrong.
you do. Yeah.
Your body knows, even if you don't know it cognitively. So then there's a conflict that develops inside you,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's like there's a truth competing with this person that's an authority in your life, and then I was using this greater authority, and I would call that spiritual abuse. And I don't need anybody to tell me that I did the best I could. I get that,
Mm,
and I get to grieve. And you know what? My grieving that, my this son is in his 20s, and I have the most beautiful, intimate relationship with him that I do not think I could have gotten to if my grief would have been stolen,
isn't that amazing? Yeah.
right? Because
Mm,
now I see and he feels seen,
yeah. Yeah.
and we heal together.
Yeah.
Like,
It's so,
that's
yeah.
incredible.
There's so many gifts that come from it, isn't there? Yeah.
Yes.
When we allow ourselves to process it, when we allow ourselves to go through that grief process, and don't let anybody else shut it down, or don't let anyone else put their meaning onto it either. Like you were saying before, someone else putting their own religious belief onto your grief, and every part of your body is resisting. No, that that's not right.
Yeah.
Mm,
But when this has happened to you from when, so one exercise that I'll have people do sometimes is just to remember a time And it can be the most, like it could be a time that you lost a toy, a time that somebody was mean to you, a time, just allow whatever memory comes up, but that you needed comfort. And
Mm,
like what was there and what was that teaching you without words?
mm, mm,
And people recognize, oh, the things that were important to me weren't important.
mm.
You don't talk about those things. You soldier on, like you said, but these messages are often given to us. There are words given at times.
Mm.
Sometimes it's very much without words, but we learn it because we are amazing in that we are survival,
Mm.
right? Like we are made to survive. And oh, thank God for this survival brain, because here we are together having a conversation. But little kids learn immediately the hidden rules so that they can survive. They intuit what they can't say, how to perform, whatever.
So true.
Well, and then we practice it in. So now as adults, and that's why part of the work is educating about grief
Mm.
so that we can give ourselves a freaking break
Yes. Yeah.
and allow the love to get in. Like, it's all right. We're here.
Yeah.
Nobody did anything wrong. And
Yeah.
grief needs love.
It does need love. And to love, yeah, to love all the parts, not just the parts that we think are acceptable to other people. Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
That's exactly like
Mm.
even our own, right? There are times that we act in ways that we would prefer that we hadn't acted.
Mm.
I don't know whether it's we snapped at some, whatever it is,
Mm.
or we shut down when we, and we're like, I'm like, I'm 52 years old. What is happening that I'm shutting down because I can't drive this new 62 Jeep my husband bought? This really happened this weekend. And I was like, my temptation was to judge her and to say, you should be different, better, more than you are. And just allowing the gap.
Yeah.
Like the grief is in the gap and the love is in the love fills the gap.
Mm.
The gap between how I want to be in a given moment and how I am. That's a grief place.
It's a grief place and it's important to fill it with love.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. I like it.
Absolutely.
I love it. I love it. I really like this. So, okay, God, we've talked about so many different things around grief, and I think it's a really unique conversation. And I really want to thank you for bringing these thoughts and these concepts into this conversation. I think it's really important that that understanding of the gap where grief is the gap where we need to fill with love. And even the love of that grief space, of that love of I am in pain right now and it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I love
And we don't need to protect anybody from our tears.
mm, mm,
Like, remember you asked what happens to us when we hold it in. So same thing. I'm gonna go out I'm gonna go out to lunch with Deb. This is a special lunch. I just got a call. I've got some, but I'm gonna keep this in because I don't want to burden her with my bummer, right? And now I'm not showing up as myself. I've shrunk down. I've
mm.
shrunk down your experience of me. Whatever we're going to have at lunch is not going to be the same because I'm soldiering on and keeping it in. And the
Let's
big,
celebration.
expansive love fest we want, right? I
Yeah.
mean, maybe that's not how we would phrase it, but the sense of community, of well being, of being seen and loving well and being loved well. I've denied myself that opportunity and you. And how often, like people, we think we're going to burden another person,
Mm.
and it just invites a freshness, like a spring rain. And then we get a new experience. It's sometimes we think I'm just going to drown in a puddle of tears and I'm going to drown Debbie with me and I'm going to drown the whole world. And that's not what happens. We allow a container big enough for the love and the grief and the community. And now when you've got something going on, guess who you feel comfortable being with?
Exactly. Yeah. And that is true relationship. That is true friendship. Yeah, it is. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Lisa, we have some beautiful women out there, I'm sure, watching this. Where can they contact you if they'd like to contact you?
So on Instagram, I'm Lisa Michelle at LegitYou, LEGITYOU. My website is legityou.com. And I'm super accessible and easy peasy to contact.
Fantastic. And you will find the live link to connect with Lisa in the description notes underneath this video. So that's where you need to go and look, and you can just click on the link and it will take you straight through.
Yay.
Wow, you have shared so many wonderful insights that it's going to be really helpful to the ladies watching. And I would imagine with a topic like grief that there will be a number of ladies clicking on to watch this. Because as we said right at the beginning, it's something that's not talked about enough. So I'd love you to share with our audience, if there's a lady out there that's really grieving at the moment, what's the best advice that you can give her?
To honor it. Like the temptation is to judge it, to shut it down. I mean, it might be to journal, it might be to, but let it be seen and then ask it what it needs. We really are not meant to grieve alone. That's why communities have grieved together in times past. That's why. And so one thing you can do very practically is first allow yourself to see it. And then you can even contact a friend and say, I'd like to share this with you, and tell them what you want. So often you might not know that you don't want this, but I will tell you, I don't need to be fixed. I don't need to be advised. I don't need to be saved. I would just like you to witness me. And then you can even tell them. And the only words you need to say afterward are thank you. And we can create these spaces by setting up some borders. And then it might sound like, I can't tell them that. It takes the pressure off. Like if I do this with my husband all the time, I need to remind him, I'm not looking for advice. You don't need to fix anything. Be here, listen, and thank me for sharing with you. He's like, that's all I got to do? But it really like allows him, because he loves me. He wants to be able to make it better. I do think that's, yeah. And so when we tell people, you can't make it better, but I do want you to just be with me. Having someone else hear us helps us to hear us. That's why I create spaces for us to be like together, other than just the working one-on-one, so that we can recognize I'm not alone. I live in Deb and I live in Sally and I live in, Jim and John and
yeah, exactly. And yeah, exactly the same. That's one of the main things I hear women say in my group programs is the same thing. It's the actually being able to hear themselves say it. It makes a huge difference because it's almost like they give themselves the aha moment. Yeah.
We've
Incredible.
got the guidance within. We
Yeah,
just need spaces to access it.
yeah, that's exactly right. I love that. I love what you said. Just, this is what I want. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to give me advice. I just want you to listen. And I think it's when we're grieving, it's so important that we ask for what we need, because most people are grappling, trying to find something to say to comfort us, when all they need to hear, all they need to say is, thank you for sharing. I feel for you, or I'm so sorry that you're going through this. Yeah.
And it's hard because it's kind of like having that conversation about race or something like that, where the person suffering is trying to educate the ones surrounding them. And it is kind of a backwards deal. And I wish it was different.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do.
That's why we have to have conversations like this, because it gets the word out there. If people can just get used to the fact that you don't have to say anything to try and make someone feel better. It's really just about validating them in the space, you know, giving them the space to share. I love that.
Yeah, and it's like we've made a golden calf out of people feeling better. It's actually okay.
That's right.
Not feel okay. Like,
it is. It's totally.
that's allowed.
I love it. Lisa, thank you so much. This has been amazing, amazing. You've shared so many wonderful insights, so given some beautiful advice, really beautiful, heartfelt advice. And I know it's going to make a difference. I know that it's going to make a difference. It has to, because it has to be talked about. It has to be.
Thank you so much for just giving space to talk about it.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. I trust that you've gained some beautiful tips, advice, some real insights listening to this conversation, because grief is such an important topic. It needs to be discussed more. People need to know how to behave around grief. And I trust that you've gained those sort of insights from this conversation. It's so important. If you found this video helpful, remember to give us a thumbs up and share it with your friends. So important to share this kind of information. And if you'd like to see more videos like this one, remember to subscribe to this channel on the red subscribe button underneath, and click the bell for notifications so you don't miss out. Lisa, thank you again. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you, ladies. And I'll look forward to connecting next time. Lots of love to you. Bye-bye.